Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got John Lindquist back. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for asking.
I'm happy to have you back on the show. I'm really excited because this is a show that's about a different thing than we talked about last time. That's actually the same thing that we talked about last time. But I want to. Before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about you. So, for folks who aren't familiar with your work, do you want to give us a bit of a background?
Sure. I spent decades consulting, doing web development work. I was like the project lead on HBO.com for a while. Anyway, that's a long, long time ago. Founded Egghead.io with Joel Hooks, and that's been the past decade. And for the past couple of years, been working on ScriptKit. It's been back when it was you and I showing it on stream a year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a CLI tool. Then I was isolated in my room for a year and a half, and now it's this full-fledged, you know,
I feel like we all responded to the stress of just all of it differently, right? And my stress response is always to just like stay occupied with work, because I'm like, what else am I going to do? Sit and panic, right?
Amen.
And it sounds like you have a similar stress response.
Yeah, I was a workaholic before, and that just doubled it. Yeah.
Oof, yeah.
So here we are.
So the last time that we tried this, it was still experimental, right? You were playing with the stuff. You were writing node scripts to control a computer, and I thought that was such a fun idea. And like, when I say control a computer, I don't mean in the traditional sense of like we write node and we can build web servers or handle like processing. You were actually like modifying windows on the screen. You were doing automation on the Mac, and that's such a fun thing to do. So how, at the time, I don't even think it was called ScriptKit. I think it was just a thing you were playing with. So how has it evolved?
So it started as, I called it simple scripts for a while. And then I was trying to think like, what is this that I'm building? And
Right.
I'm like, well, it's a kit for scripts. And people ask me like, what's the tagline for a ScriptKit? Well, it's a kit for scripts, but that doesn't, it's called ScriptKit.
ScriptKit, a script for kids, or a kit for scripts.
Anyway, exactly. That's pretty much it. Just nail on the head name. So once I got that, it evolved from like the original idea is that Bash is not very fun to write scripts in.
Mm.
And a lot of people struggle with the configuration, with variables, with like anything in setting up a Bash script. And for me, it's how can I take that experience of I want to write a script for something, a build script, a deploy script, a script to control Windows, a script to control home automation, a script to like we can do all those things. How can I remove all the friction around that?
Right.
And make it a wonderful developer experience, because I'm extremely passionate about all that tooling and everything around it. So just heads down finding, because I write a lot of scripts.
Right.
And one of the goals of ScriptKit is I have an idea for an automation. In the past, I had all these hurdles in the way where I wouldn't do it. Now I have a few minutes. I'm just going to do it.
Right. That's actually you bring up a really good point, which is that I think a lot of times what we have when we start is an idea, and that idea is something that we get really excited about. We're like, oh, I could build this, and that would allow me to do X, Y, and Z. And then when we start actually digging into that idea, we find the hurdles. It's like, well, that would mean I'd have to figure out how to dig into the internals of this thing, or I'd have to work around the limitations of that thing. And we hit this critical mass of hurdles where we go, that idea is not worth it. Right. And I think one of the things that's been really hard for me, at least, is that, I in my job now, I just don't have a lot of free time. I don't have the ability to do the plumbing work. right? So if I have an idea, if there's not a clear path, like I can use this tool to accomplish this goal, I'm almost always not going to be able to take that thing on because I don't
Exactly.
have time to build the plumbing stuff. And so what I like about this is, I've written bash scripts. If you look at my dot files, you can see I've got a few in there that I use to automate different parts of my workflow, mostly around like Git and stuff like that. But I don't write very many of them because they're challenging. It's not a language that's particularly I don't consider to be particularly human readable. It's very like there's some magic and there's some stuff you got to know and like
Yep.
where did these arguments come from? Oh, they're just there. You have to know to reference them. Like there's a
Yep.
lot of complexity in bash scripts that I think just makes them not approachable. And every bash script I've ever written contains at least 50% copy pasted code because I
Yeah.
didn't quite understand how it worked or why.
But like to that point, actually, the a light bulb moment for a lot of people is when I explained it how Netlify gives you this experience of here's a function, here's a folder that says functions. Drop a bunch of files in there, and then they'll all run on the server. And that comes with a ton of benefits. And one of them is you can copy and paste the code from one function from someone's example, demo, repo, whatever, into yours, and then just deploy it, and it's good.
Mm-hmm.
How can I take that experience, bring it to the desktop, where ScriptKit treats a directory that has a folder called scripts in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it treats those all as scripts you can run. So if you write some code, you could copy and paste it, send it to someone else, tweak it however you want, because you're never going to find the perfect script for the thing that you want to do.
Right.
Maybe the script is resizing something to 50 pixels. Like I needed it at 49, and like how do I tweak that? And
Right.
so, or how do I combine a couple of script ideas? And like we're like developers, it's all about copy from that, mash it together, and uh, hopefully it works. And that's like that huge goal of scripting things and the developer experience is how can I make it like Netlify's functions folder? And I like, let's do a scripts folder, and everything in there is a script.
Well, yeah, because you bring up like again just some of these small hurdles. Like if you want to write a script that runs on your machine using Node, you can do that right now. You can create like myscript.js and then you can write Node. But there's a few things you got to know. You got to know how to set the environment variable in there to use Node instead of Bash. You've got to figure out how to set the file as executable in your file system. There's all these little things that need to happen that are all things you can learn, and they're fine. Like, we're developers, we can learn how stuff works, but when you're trying to do something quickly, you don't really want to have to learn all of the lower layers of why a thing works. I have an idea. Hey, I want to be able to grab a random picture to drop into any markdown that I'm writing with one command, and I don't want to have to go learn how to configure files locally or all these other things. I really just want to like, okay, I need to go to Unsplash, hit that API, put that in the clipboard, wrap it in Markdown, spit that out onto the screen. Good.
Right.
That's all I want. And what I'm excited about with the little bit that I've seen from what you were working on back when we did the original episode, and I got a little sneak peek yesterday when we made sure that it runs on my machine. And what I like about what I'm seeing is that you've basically taken that, and like I had questions about what if we did this, and you were like, oh, that's too fast because it's just a little helper function instead of here's how you go get the device, here's how you go get this other thing. And each of those little things is just like it's just one more tiny stumbling block that prevents me from doing work that I care about.
Yep. And that's to that point as well. ScriptKit, if you take a clean brand new machine, and how can I go from there to working on my projects? Like the big idea of ScriptKit is it can run all those scripts. You don't like ScriptKit handles Node for you. It handles installing npm packages. It handles all of those ancillary things to doing work and getting things done. So if you could imagine someone setting up a dev machine, okay, install ScriptKit, and then ScriptKit could it could launch your web dev project. It could deploy your stuff. It could check in repos. It could do all of this, and you would never have to run, never have to open the terminal to run those commands that or configure environment variables or do all those things.
So that you never have to open your terminal. That sounds like something different than maybe what we were talking about originally. So how do you what is ScriptKit? It's an app?
ScriptKit right now is an app around an SDK.
Okay.
So the SDK is a node package which provides helpers which launch little UIs. Anytime you want to get input from the user, you can launch a UI, and then that can pass it all along to exec whatever you want, or npm packages, or anything else. It's, if you think of what a script is versus like a web project, a script is a step-by-step, one at a time, line by line thing. So it's like, at this point, prompt the user for which directory they want to pick, then copy all these files, then prompt them for what they want to name something, then rename the files. Like, there's human computer, human computer, human computer. And typically you'd write CLIs, you'd do like install tools or set up your own tools for this. ScriptKit is meant to handle all of that in a shareable, copy pastable way.
So functionally, this is going to be comparable. Like, I would use this the way that I use Alfred, but my ability to customize it is all JavaScript based instead of the, like, I've written some customizations for Alfred, and there's like drag and drop pipelines and some weird like variable stuff that I had to learn. And it was all it led to me making exactly one Alfred automation, being like, okay, that's enough. So, but functionally, the experience is kind of the same. Like, I'm gonna hit a hotkey to open up ScriptKit, and then I type the thing I want to do, and it goes and does that.
Essentially, if you've done is it 300 by 50? Have you done that course?
30 by 500, I think.
30 by 500. I always my zero padding is always off. 30 by 500. So when I was doing the sales safari on that, I'm like, I am an automation expert. I've written a lot of Alfred workflows. I've written a lot of workflows and other types of tools. I'm going to Sales Safari, and that's Sales Safari is the idea of looking through online forums and discussions and finding the pain that people experience with tools and products and stuff. And this isn't speaking negatively of Alfred or any tool or anything, but the thing I got from everyone and my own personal experience was that those writing an Alfred workflow for a developer is difficult, because the developer knows, I just want to write code. I don't want to have some sort of UI drag and drop window. Like, I know JavaScript. Just let me write JavaScript and run the script. So if you think of ScriptKit as Alfred turned inside out, where the code is at the front, and like Alfred, I think, is a very user, like a non-developer focused tool for launching apps and running pipelines that other people make.
Yeah, I think that's a good, the idea of it being sort of an inversion, I think is interesting, because it's a different tool for different sets of needs. And like, Joel in the chat is saying right now that like Joel still uses Alfred to launch apps and is using ScriptKit to do work, which are, that, so they can be complementary tools. And the thing that I find really interesting is, like, so I had a couple things that I wanted to do. Like, I want the ability to say, expand a snippet that has multiple pieces. Like, I have how I show an image in a blog post, for example, where it needs a source, it needs an alt, it needs some configuration about whether it's left aligned, center aligned, etc. Does it have a caption? Does it have an image credit? Like, all these little pieces of information. And I started putting this together in Alfred, and it was like, I'm like dragging and dropping this chain of
Yep.
input commands in Alfred, and like I got it to work, but then I needed to make a change and I ended up breaking the whole thing, and so now it just doesn't work, right? And so now I'm manually editing my snippet. If I could do that in just JavaScript, I understand how JavaScript works and I understand how to
Exactly.
use JavaScript as a templating language. So it's much more in line with like how I work anyways, right? And I could go build it into VS Code, but like what if I'm writing in my headless CMS like Sanity and I still want to use these expansions? I'm not in VS Code to do that.
Yep.
So I like that it's okay. So maybe here's an analogy. Is this like, no, it's not, but VS Code snippets, but kind of globally, but that's only like one tiny feature.
Right. And that's the challenge of explaining ScriptKit, is that it encompasses so much.
Yeah,
And it's
what can
also,
you write with code?
right. It's familiar, because people have used, what are the drop down menus called? People have given them a specific name, command palettes.
Right.
People have used command palettes, so it's familiar in that sense. But the idea that at any time I can add a command to my command palette with just with a few keystrokes, that's totally unfamiliar to people, because it's usually clone this repo, set up this project, compile it into a bundle, package it up, and ship it to someone else, and whatever. This is type a few characters, and you're writing your own command. So
Yeah, that's a good, and for anybody who's not familiar with what a command palette is, you've probably used one, but we did an episode with command bar, which is one option for building one of those for your site. You can also, on the LearnWithJason site, if you hit Command K, it'll open up a command palette that's powered by Algolia that Sarah Dion built, which is awesome. So very familiar in terms of we've all probably run one of these at one point or another. And what I find really fascinating about this is that it's sort of like there are web-ish things that you can do with it. Like I was talking earlier about, hey, I need to go get a random image. Well, cool, I'm going to use the fetch API. I know how to do that. I'm going to go make a call. I'm going to get the response, do something with it. But then we can do these other really interesting automations where we're touching the windows on the screen, we're touching the configuration of the computer, all this really fascinating stuff that gives a lot of extended power. And so CJ in the chat is saying it sounds like ScriptKit really shines with more complex tasks. Does that feel? I don't know. Does that feel accurate?
I wouldn't describe it that way. I mean, what makes a task complex? So
maybe a reframing of that is ScriptKit really shines when the thing you're doing is custom. Like Alfred is going to give you built for you one size fits all solutions. ScriptKit is where you would go if you wanted to make it yours.
Yeah, I like that. I like that bit better. Like there's a bit.
Still,
there's
you still
a bit of
don't
ownership.
like it though.
Yeah, it's. But it's like going back to that analogy of a Netlify functions folder. Does a serverless function shine better in complex scenarios?
That's it. I mean, that is a fair point. And I guess this is the major challenge of code in general, is like, how do you fit code into a box? Like what can Node.js do? And the answer is a lot. And it can be good for highly complex and bespoke things. And also it can
depends. Sorry, yes. you gotta sing the tildes.
New rule, you heard it here first. So but yeah, so I think that's definitely that's fair. So yes, it heavily depends, and I guess would come down to how do you want to solve your problems? Like, can you find something in Alfred that's solving your problem exactly, or do you want to be able to just open up a little thing and say, all right, Node, I know how to use you, we're gonna build this, and maybe it's a one-liner or maybe it's something super complex.
Right. Yeah, we can even go over like your snippet example. Like we can write a snippet that takes parameters, and we can compare I'm happy to take that approach as well. So.
Okay, yeah, let's, you know what, why don't we just take this as a good opportunity to switch over and actually start building some stuff. We'll give things a try. And with that, I'm going to switch over to our pair programming view.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, OBS is open on the wrong window. Here we go. Let's move it over here. So now we're looking at this. All right, so we're going to swing over to the homepage of Learn with Jason, where you can find the live captions that are being provided by Amanda today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Amanda. And that's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and Backlight, all kicking in to make the show more accessible to more people. And we are talking today to, that's the wrong window. Let's get into this window. John Lindquist. Spelled it right on the first try. Look at me go. I'm going to drop a link there. And if you want to follow along with the captions, you can always find those on the homepage of the site, learnwithjason.dev. Okay, so we are talking about ScriptKit. And I have it in my history here, so we'll just let that autocomplete. And I went ahead and installed this ahead of time because we wanted to make sure that I have, you know, anybody who's been watching this show for a while knows that I do all sorts of chaotic things to my machine as part of running this show. And so I just get unexpected behavior that's pretty wild sometimes. So we wanted to make sure if I'm installing an app that's going to like have to touch the system that it would work. So we did a little install session yesterday, made sure that it works. And I do in fact have
little install sesh.
Yeah. So if I open up Kit and I hit, let's see here, command, what is it? Command semicolon?
Yeah. So the icons in the menu bar, it's one of those like hidden apps.
Yeah.
That only shows up when you hit the shortcut.
And so now I have ScriptKit, and I can drop this browser down so that we can actually see what's going on. So this is ScriptKit, right?
So when you
command semicolon to pop it open.
And the major point, like the inversion you see right away, is that it's showing you code at the, like it's right in your face. You're about to run code. So for any of these, it's just right there. And on any of the scripts, you can hit Command O and it'll open it and you can start editing. Like it's just right there. So
here it is. So I can mess with this and say like, okay, save it. And now it's right there, right up at the top where I made my change.
Yeah, and that script's uninteresting. I mean, it opens an editor with that content.
Right.
But that's a cheat sheet. Like ScriptKit ships with things like an app launcher and a file browser and some things you're familiar with from other tools. So.
And to be clear, all I did to install this is I'm on an M1, so I downloaded the Silicon build, and then I dragged that into my applications folder. So that was the whole install setup for anybody who is following along at home. And with that, we can start. Let's start messing with some stuff. So what's a good like first thing to do? We edited the cheat sheet command. It looks like we've got a couple options here of things that are being.
Yeah, let's actually let's just tackle the snippet expander.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Do you have the? So
I do have the snippet, yeah.
Okay, if you look at there should be if you type snippet in there. So if you look at the code in there, just like copy and or you can duplicate that one actually. So Command D or the.
So I just hit the right arrow, which gave me a whole bunch of different options. So I'm going to hit duplicate or Command D. Now I have a new one.
Yeah, name it Jason-snippet or something.
I'll call it like blog image because that's really what I would end up.
It's so these things can be run from the terminal. So you can run it in the app or in the terminal. So yeah.
Okay, so call it blog image. All right, and so now I've got a blog image.
Yep, and when you duplicate it, it strips out the name and the snippet and metadata stuff. So
gotcha. Okay, so what I want is, we'll call this a blog image. The snippet, is that what the expander is?
Yeah. So you can type any text and it'll watch for you to enter.
Okay.
Just make it different than the other one so they don't run at the.
Yeah, I think what I have for this one is, yeah, so this is my my Alfred workflow, which apparently I didn't break.
Okay.
And got a caption, we've got alt text. And so then I get this.
Sweet.
This is my figure, right? This is how I put an image in my blog.
Okay, so surround that in a string template. And let's grab out the variables. So
we would need, should I just set them up as like caption?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you got the idea.
Okay.
And say await arg for to prompt the user to enter an argument as await arg. And like yeah, you can pass in a string as a placeholder to say enter a caption.
Okay, something like that. And then we've got a credit, so we can do the same thing. We'll have a credit link. We will have the alt.
Hey, you're cruising. Look at you.
And then we'll have the source. And that's our whole thing. So then we can take these. And let's just do credit. Who owns this image? And then we'll do another one for the link. Link to whatever. Do another one down here for the alt. Describe the image, and finally we have the source. All right.
Great.
So that should get each of our pieces. Yep. And then we have our template, and then I would just...
So instead of keyboard type, you'll want to say set selected text. Because you don't want it to type out that whole thing. Set selected text does a copy and paste sort of action. Not keyboard sets, just set
selected text. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. And then pass in the template. Then yeah, get rid of that one. And there you go.
That's the whole thing? Okay, let's try it. So now I'm going to go into, let's open up code. And I'll create a new window. I'll get the sizing right here. There we go. And then I'm going to set this as markdown. Or it's not markdown, is it? It's something else. That's okay. So I'm going to write image. Okay, your caption is not your alt text. A sample image. Do one of these. And then we can do like we could assume we have one.
Sure.
Right. And look at that, y'all. And this is the sort of thing that it took me a long time to get this running in Alfred. Not because Alfred is bad, but like if we look at Alfred, how do I?
I really, really hesitate to critique a tool that I've loved and used. First, I love Alfred. Absolutely adore it.
I mean, same. But like, this is the flow that I went through for Alfred, and like, I do really like these. I want to be really clear. Like, you know, I use them all the time. But the thing that got me was like, each of these has a function, and I didn't really understand what any of that meant. And so, you know, I'm getting a credit, and then in here I had to like set a variable, and I only still sort of understand what that means. And then in here I'm doing the same thing, and doing another one of those, and then like finally I get down here and I've got all of my credits, but like so this makes sense, but you have to learn the way to do it, right? You're learning the Alfred way, and I've already learned the code way. So so what I run into is the frustration isn't that these tools don't do what I want. The frustration for me is always that these tools have proprietary ways of solving these problems that are really challenging for me. And so as I can and do learn how other tools solve these problems, but I prefer, especially when it's something that I like, a template. I know exactly how to do a template in JavaScript. I've done it a million times. Being able to build it in JavaScript just makes my life easier.
Yep.
And so that I think is the important distinction, and like where my preference comes in. Whereas with something like, for a,
so
whatever it is,
let's play with that one a bit more, just to show some
let's do it.
fun stuff.
So I've got my image, right?
Yeah, just search for it, Commando. You can remove all those comments. They're just about that security and privacy or accessibility stuff.
Okay.
So say, for example, on your caption, or on your credit, you have a few people you typically want to credit, like a common list of people. So the next argument in arg would be an array of strings, and that'll pop down that search list.
Okay.
Yeah. So now you've changed the script, and when that pops up, it'll give you a list of users to pick from.
Oh, nice. Okay. So let's go into code again. And do another one. Nice. Okay.
Yep.
And if I want to put in a custom one, I can't.
You can. I can show you how if you want.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So in that first argument, we're going to change that from a string to like a config. Pass in an object. Placeholder was that previous string. And put strict defaults. That's the one that limits the user to picking from the list.
Nice. So yeah, that's great. And all feels pretty approachable here, where we've got, I know what an arg is, and this is kind of interesting. Are you wrapping these with something? Because this is, top level await. Is that what's going on here?
Yep, top level await is just available. The script kit directory where these scripts are stored. If you go to the menu bar, and go to the reveal ken in Finder. So your scripts are stored in here in that scripts directory.
Oh, okay.
And all the setup around it is all like the node modules and all that stuff is in there.
Got it.
So that's akin to like a portable Kit environment, kind of like Ruby environments and Python environments.
So I could, if I wanted to, put this into like my dot files and make this portable between machines or something like that.
Yep, you can version this. You can share Kit environments.
How does it work with, like, I see a node modules here. I probably wouldn't want to commit that to GitHub, right? So if I ignore, or does it have a git ignore in it?
I think so.
And so if I just save this in my .env, when I open it up on another machine, it knows to install all that?
Yes.
Nice.
So, yeah, we can get into some of the NPM stuff too. Yeah. Anyway, I was just going to say a Kit environment is essentially a directory with a scripts folder in it. And as you add more scripts, other folders and other things will be created on demand. A lot of script kit is just in time sort of actions.
Gotcha. Got a feature request from David in the chat, which is actually a great idea. If you made the into a promise.all, then you could open these up as a form.
Yeah.
Like
You could definitely have. So there is an await form that you can use, but it's one of those things that requires writing all the HTML for it.
Okay.
So
like a potential feature request for someone else who wanted that would be able to kind of extend the kit to have form.
Well, so here's the thing about forms is that if you look at how easy it was to add a list of users to pick from and to restrict it to that list, that was trivial here. In a form, writing that in HTML like turns into a chore.
It's a lot, yeah.
So while I agree with forms are wonderful, this gives you so much more flexibility. Like, so say for example, you wanted to pull Jason, John, and Marissa from an API.
Right.
That second argument instead of an array can be an async function, which returns an array.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So like a lot of these give you like the full power of customization or what's that word? Procedural enhancement? No.
Progressive enhancement?
Progressive enhancement. Thank you. Where I start with just arg. You don't even have to pass in a placeholder. And then as I want to add more and more to it, I want to add previews to when I highlight an individual person, I want it to show their individual image, or I want to add descriptions to each of them. Like you can keep on adding more and more to it. The developer experience with forms, no one has figured out. I'm just going to say it that way.
Yeah. But I do think, this is it is a problem that you could solve in Userland, right? Like it's the sort of thing that you can go and build out, because if I remember correctly, I can also just like put anything I want into a script kit. So
it's just JavaScript. Like,
right.
At the end of the day, like this is, it provides these global helper functions, but you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to stop you from writing your own code.
Okay. And so there are a few things in the cheat sheet here that are kind of interesting. So I've got just a bunch of keys here. So if I hit semicolon, now I'm in
you're in traditional app launcher land.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the hello world of command palettes.
Right. And then I go into my file browser and I can go to my downloads or whatever. Right. And then what else do I have?
If you hit command 0 from the main menu, like you moved around the initial one, so you see it like herky jerky. There you go. Now it'll stay centered. Like it caches positions of windows.
Oh, because I moved a bunch of stuff.
So now when you do it again, it won't go from main window and yeah.
I got you. So
sorry,
then
that was bugging me.
Go in here and like, LS, right? Lots of options. Clipboard history. Boy, am I glad I didn't have something in here that I shouldn't have. I just realized as I pushed that button, I was like,
yeah, that's a dangerous one to do live. Now it does its best to ignore while 1Password or other like security apps are open. It ignores any sort of stuff that's going on there.
And so now with a scratch pad like this, this is basically a file that I can edit, and I'm found this with the comma here in Scratchpad. I'm just kind of going down this list, and that I just push comma and it opens this up, and I can say whatever I want, right? Like, don't forget, right?
And you can look at the bottom. It's updating that file, usersblitz.chem sticky.
There it is. So I hit escape, it's saved, come back out here, and we can do a little bit more. Let's see what else I got. File search. I'm We can do like a.
Is that a dangerous one for you?
It should be okay. So like these are some images I share for like speaker shots or whatever. Come back out here. We've got.
And you can, like, from that, you can drag and drop out, and you can take action and show in the Finder and all those sorts of things.
Oh,
like,
nice.
that's what, in general, like the challenge I gave myself and the challenge others gave me was that ScriptKit has to be able to emulate the features that other apps have in a scriptable way. Like, all of those are scripts, and you can look at the source of all of those. So anything you see happening in here, searching for files and everything, those are all things that you could do in your own scripts.
Nice.
Right. This isn't some custom hidden away thing.
Mm-hmm.
So any of those can give you ideas for potential things that you could hook together as little components and everything.
Nice. Okay, so if I hit the apostrophe, I get a list of my snippets. Mm-hmm. Come back out. I can hit this square bracket, and there's a template. What's the difference between a snippet and a template?
The template uses, so they're grouped together when you hit those. The snippets use the snippet metadata that you saw.
Mm-hmm.
And the templates are the set selected text, and they're grouped together there.
Okay, so did I use this wrong? So this should have been a template then?
No, that's still a snippet because it uses the snippet metadata at the top.
Okay, I think I am confusing myself then. So template.
It's a way of categorizing a script.
Uh-huh.
A snippet is when you type text into the keyboard, it'll trigger the script. So when you typed semicolon image, I can't remember what the snippet was.
Oh, okay, I understand. So if I go in here and I run this, it's going, like, I'm triggering that directly. I'm not entering like a thing that will be auto expanded when I type it.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, snippets are like text expander things.
I gotcha. Okay. What else we got in here? Got what's the Word API?
Just type boop. I don't know.
Boopsie.
Boopsie doodle.
Okay, so how do I go over to these?
The tab.
Doop.
Doop.
This is fun. Oh, it's got a rhyme. Also
so
fun.
there's the Datamuse API is what this hooking into.
Okay.
The Datamuse is an open API for doing Word stuff. And you can
oh, cool. Got my system commands in here. Dev tools.
If you ever just wanted.
Is this the dev tools for ScriptKit?
It's a spawned window of just dev tools. Chrome does like a global dev tools anyway.
Gotcha. So I can just use that to sort of run a console real quick or
yeah, whatever. If you ever want to like test some JavaScript in a sandbox little thing.
Mm-hmm. And so running this is, oops. Oh, nice. Rapid emoji picker. That's good.
Because because Mac's one is so reliable.
It's hard. Yeah, that one is hard for me to use for sure. Google suggests, so if I go in here and type one of these, I can just type whatever. And it pulls up some options. So let's click. Oops. Got all of those. Oh, this is cool too. Check this out. So I've got all these options. And then if I come over here, so just so handy, like unbelievably handy.
That's nice.
All right, what else should we be looking at? Did I miss anything else?
You can run Corgi's a fun one because we can dive into, I don't know how much time, probably 45 minutes.
Yeah, we got 45 minutes. So here's a Corgi.
We can talk about like widgets are a whole other concept where it's a be a silly way of saying this, but a UI backed script.
Okay.
So it's a script with a UI that you can send data to, and it'll send events back. Now you may think that's just what apps are, and I would agree with you. But essentially, ScriptKit, you can like build these little apps that are little standalone things.
Okay, so let's look at how that works. So we've got a widget, and that's an image.
So
and then,
yeah, the widgets use the Vue. There's this Vue Tiny or something version of Vue.
Okay.
Because of the syntax, it needs to be a template syntax framework so that you can just send objects to it and it'll just update the template.
Gotcha.
It would have been very strange to do in React.
Yeah.
With set state and hooks and everything.
Yeah. So we've got our update image is an async function that hits the dog API, and then we just get to update that URL with whatever we get back from the API, and then we actually call the function. And when you click, it updates the image. That's fun.
And that's like you could call that an app. I don't know if I'd sell that in the App Store, but
yeah, I mean, but you can also see how quickly this becomes like really beneficial, because you know, I'm thinking about I don't know, we could do a lot of things with this. We could show the next episode of Learn with Jason using my API, or we could get the current time in whatever place and just have a little widget on the desktop at all times that shows what time it is in London, which would be useful for me because I have people on my team in London. I need to know, or near
let's
London.
do that.
Okay.
Here's yeah, the thing with ScriptKit is let's stop talking, let's start doing.
I love it. Okay, so
just start typing time in London.
Wow. Okay. All right. Here's
hit
our
enter.
Script.
Say await widget.
And
pass in some HTML.
Well, let's see. How do we want that to work? It's going to be a.
Usually want to do the backticks, but.
Oh yeah, good call.
Because they're going to be multi-line almost every time.
Let's go with. We'll just set up a div, and inside this, I'm going to have a the current time in London is, and then we'll put in another one that has. Ooh, how does this work in Vue? Is it content?
Just do the curly braces, double curly braces inside the. Yep, perfect.
Okay, and then down here I need a async function load time, and that's going to be a let's see, can I do this from memory? New date, and then I want, can I do it? Local, it's going to be time set time zone. No,
I've never done this, so good luck.
Oh, let's go. We can do it. We can do it. Set time zone UTC offset. No, crap. Okay. Time zone offset. 2 locale time string, 2 time string. Okay, so we've got the locales and GB. Oh boy. Can I set the time zone? Time zone name is, I'm gonna have to look that one up. I don't remember what the time zone. I don't remember what the London time zone name is. So let's see, London time zone name. For date. Time zone. Time zone offset, that's not what I want. I want locale time string. And we get, right, so we get our date, and I want the options to be That stuff is all fine. But I really want to see setting the time zone. Using locales, I get that part. Using options, show me time zone, UTC. Okay, so we can just set time zone to UTC.
Yeah, and you can, in ScriptKit, you can copy and paste that stuff.
Oh yeah, easy peasy. So let's just grab this bit.
I like to encourage copy and pasting.
And we'll go time. Go in here. Right, and then that should give us our time. And so what we are after then is we want to do widget set state.
Not widget set state. So await widget above returns the widget object.
Oh, so we want
to
to
call it clock or whatever.
Yeah, okay, so clock, and then we'll do a clock set state. And inside this, we want content to be equal to local. Okay.
Yeah.
So then I want to run load time, and then it was clock update. What was it?
So are you going to do a timer, or are you going to do like a set interval, or what?
Oh, that's a good point.
Going for here?
I probably do need to set the interval and then update it. So, okay. Let's do that.
I was thinking you just do a
set interval, and every 1 second we'll update it.
Yep.
Okay. So that sets it, and then to display it, I need to
yeah, it looks good. You're doing clock set state every second in the function, so it's
and that'll update it. I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try it. Neat. Look at it go, y'all.
Show me potato salad.
That is super fun and very cool. Also, I see that Cassidy absolutely solved my time zone problems far before I did, and I didn't read the chat. So thank you, Cassidy.
So a couple things you can do here. If you open the script again, the second argument of the widget function is a config. So if you pass in an object here, you can do like always on top. You could set that to true. You could do transparent as true. And when you do transparent as true, you almost always want to do has shadow as false. Otherwise, it gives it a weird drop shadow action. And the widget also ships with Tailwind classes if you want to make it look bigger or anything. If you want to do like class text 4XL or something.
Like this? Oh, like in the HTML itself?
Oh, yeah, in the HTML itself.
4XL, is that?
I think it's text-4XL. Now try running it again.
Okay, so I'm going to have to do that. Let's close that. I'm just hitting escape to close these for everybody. Time in London, current time in London. Great. It's doing something interesting where it's kind of like
selectable.
It's selectable, but it also like pops up to the top.
Yeah, so it tries to resize and get out of the way. Otherwise, it'll cover up too much.
Okay.
You can always drag it around, resize it, and then Command L on a widget will lock it so that you can click through it. If you think of like a Twitch pop-up or something, now you can keep on working, and you should be able to select stuff underneath it.
Let's see. Yep.
So you have to get rid of this now, you either have to go to, what's the 3-finger swipe up called? Mission control. Click on it and Command L again to unlock it. And now you can resize it and stuff. And any of the, so if you have a long running script like that,
Oops.
so if you, just leave that there. You can do a bunch of them, cover your screen in London time. In the menu bar, because this is like you could consider it like a process orchestrator. If you can think of ScriptKit as something that's launching processes based on what the user enters, you can see a running process list, and any of those you can go down and terminate or open logs and that sort of stuff.
Got it. So I can go here and terminate, and there it goes. Okay. And so then in here, this is great. How, if I want to add padding, is it like
P-4 or...
Okay. Let's try that. And
I don't know how visible that would be since the window's transparent.
Well, what I was wondering is it feels like right now it's kind of like smashing up against the top. So I was thinking that might give it a little less smashy. It did not. But most likely that's because I don't know Tailwind.
Well, it smashes up against the top. It does a browser window measurement thing. So
right.
It should respect the padding.
Got it. Okay. What I'm not going to do, chat, is get stuck in the CSS.
Yeah.
But that's pretty good. This other one is less good, but that's okay. Look at that. Okay, we'll leave that on. That's going to be great. So then we have, what else can we do? I feel like you had other ideas here.
Yeah. So if we want to do something really fun, let's scrape a website.
Yeah, let's do it. All right.
So create a new script, call it scrape and resize.
Okay.
So when you're naming things from here, they don't have to have dashes because it'll
auto do that.
Convert it. When
Gotcha.
you're duplicating, you need to make sure there's no name con. Anyway. So if you await scrape selector, and pass in LearnWithJason.dev. You may have heard of it. Great website. Really handsome people. All right, so this is, and the next argument is the element you want to scrape. So what we're going to scrape is the image, as in IMAGE, because we're getting the you used SVG images.
Gotcha.
So we're scraping those. And then the next argument is we're going to yank off the, this is going to be a function, say like E, then a fat arrow, and return the el.href.baseval, because this is a SVG animated.
Okay.
This is just because if you look at the source of the site, you'll see SVG surrounding those image tags. This is, if you look at the source of LearnWithJason,
yeah,
we're essentially setting up a selector to grab images of people.
Yes, and we're looking at these images here, which are set up as because I'm doing some
clip path stuff.
Yeah, clip path stuff, and also it's so that I can do these animated transitions.
Yep.
Right. I couldn't figure out how to do that any other way, and both Cassie and Sarah have taught me how to do a lot of SVG animation. So that was a fun thing to do that I probably couldn't do again today.
Yeah. All right, so what we're going to do here is this is going to return an array of all of those images. So let's just do a dev just to kind of inspect the result.
Like that.
And put dev and then pass the response. You can call it image URLs or whatever. Response is fine. All right, now if you run this, something interesting is going to happen. It's going to prompt you to install Playwright. Now, this is one of the only tools in the ScriptKit SDK that'll prompt you to install an NPM package. But whenever an npm package is requested to install like this, it'll make sure, like, it's been downloaded this many times. This is the name of it. You can click on the link to get more info. Like, I don't want people see, like, you don't want to install something that has one download unless you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the number one reason I added the terminal view, is because npm's output is all over the place as far as showing progress. Playwright's a rather large package, so it might take like 30 or 40 seconds. But yeah, I essentially I tried really hard to hook into the stream of npm outputting text and showing progress bars and that sort of stuff. But I'm like, you know what? It would be easier to build a terminal from scratch into the app than to handle a stream of text and show a progress bar. And it would be like, this is familiar, right?
Right.
And so once this is done, again, for me, I have a super fast machine or internet connection. Mine took 40 seconds, or 50 seconds is normal for Playwright. Others will take 2 seconds.
Weird flex, but okay. Mine only took 40 seconds. Yeah, well, mine took 52 and I'm streaming.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I yield. You win.
Okay, so now we should be set, right? So if I command enter to continue script, so I'm going to do that.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I should select the window first. There we go.
It's focused.
Have I done it? Yes, there it goes. I see things happening.
So it's scraping, and if you look in the console, you'll see we grabbed all of the images.
Cool.
All right. So the neat thing about the way it installs npm packages is it'll never prompt you for that again. It's installed, and now it'll just grab Playwright whenever requested.
Yep, there it goes. And it's taken a little while because we have to load it and then get all that stuff and then return. So there's the latency of just running everything.
Playwright, the scraper launches a headless Chrome window, which launches the site, and like that's going to take a couple seconds regardless of.
Right. Yeah. Playwright is definitely it's so powerful, but it's a hefty boy.
Yeah. Like it generates open graph images and all that stuff. Anyway. All right. So let's open back up. Open the script back up.
Okay.
And now instead of dev, let's just map those into an HTML page.
Okay, so we will image URLs map.
And the URL, and map them to image with source. Just strings. You see where I'm going? Yep.
Oh, wait. And then for this, we'll just... I don't know how to do that, so in a production script, I would do something like figure out what the alt of these images is as well and pull that in. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm not going to take the time to figure out how the HTML structure works. And,
go ahead and join those.
Okay, .join, and are we doing like the standard empty?
Yep, standard empty.
Okay.
And then, so that's, now we can do await div and pass in the page.
Okay.
Actually, let's wrap that with like a flex wrap or something. So pass in a string.
Okay.
Do like a div with a class of flex
and is this flex. You're gonna have to walk me through how Tailwind does this?
Spacebar flex dash wrap.
Okay.
Done. Yep. And then
we'll
drop
do
in the page.
Those, and that's the whole thing.
Right.
Ta-da!
So now we have.
We squished a few. Well, that's because we have different sizes. So we've got our top line here of like featured episodes, and then we've got the smaller ones of recent episodes in different categories. And that's why this got wonky, is that Oops.
I see a question. Can you remove npm packages? Yes, you can. So if you can open script kit again, go over to the kit tab, just tab, and type npm, hit enter, say uninstall a package, and you can uninstall playwright.
Nice.
There it is. All right, so open your script again. Let's keep going.
Oops. Scrape. Open.
And now let's so wrap those images with an A tag.
Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of cleaning up here. So we want an A tag.
And the href of this A tag is going to be submit, colon, and then the image, or the $, yeah, interpolated. Perfect.
Okay.
Now, in any div that you use, this kind of goes along the line of like creating pages and selecting things on a visual page.
Mm-hmm.
You can use A tags, and the submit portion of the URL means that when you click on that, submit that as the result of the div.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So I'm gonna just, for the sake of making this easier, we'll just grab the first 9, and that way we don't have to deal with the fact that those smaller ones are getting wonky. So save that.
Go back to div though. Sorry, or go back. Yeah. So from the div, you'll return a selected image.
Selected image.
Yeah, but before await div.
Before await div.
Yeah, say const selected or whatever equals await div.
Oh, I got it.
Because we're submitting the image. And you can go ahead and let's download this. Okay.
Okay.
So await download. And just pass in selected. Now, let's create a place to download it to. So if you can either do it this way. We're going to do it a little differently. Just
okay.
Just say like const file path, and use home as a function. And then you can just do like home and pass in downloads, and then comma, and then the string. We'll name the file. Let's grab the file name from selected. Are you familiar with using path and base name?
Yeah. So is it just here? Like this is the whole thing, or do I need to run like path on it?
Yeah, just say path.basename, and then pass in selected. And that'll grab the file name off of.
Okay. And then I'm going to pass in the file path, like spell it. And that should do it.
It should do it. Yeah.
Okay.
So this should.
So it shows me a list. Here's my list.
Click on somebody.
Okay.
David was watching.
Click on Cassidy's face.
Cassidy's watching too. Now in your downloads folder. I don't know if you want to take your downloads folder off screen either.
Well, this is the downloads folder. So did it do? Oh, here it. Oh, we gave it a folder name, not a file name.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
You get it. That's what the download utility is. Takes a folder path.
Yeah. So here. So we don't actually need this part, right? Because it'll set the name.
So yeah, keep it for now.
Okay.
So the way I would, we're going to do this now, is if you remove the file path from download, this returns a buffer. And with a buffer, we're going to do, we'll do await, const sharp equals await npm. And then sharp. So we're going to grab and install sharp.
Okay.
and we're going to await sharp, pass in the buffer, and dot resize 2020, I don't know, 4040, and
yeah,
say
2020 is not even going to be visible. So
yeah, and then say to file at the end of that.
Okay.
And pass in the file path.
Okay.
All right, you can go ahead and run this now.
All right. Now, what we did last time is we ended up with a folder that just downloaded it directly. So let's click on David. And I'm going to install Sharp. Oh, so that's how that works. When you do that npm, it doesn't automatically do it. It's saying, I get it.
Did you do Command Enter?
I did do Command Enter, and we can see now, here's David's face. And if I go to my downloads folder, up at the top here, that's the resized image at 40 by 40. Love it.
Yeah, so if you look at the script, the core value of ScriptKit is you should be able to read a script and know what it's doing. So hopefully, like when you look at this and you read through the steps of it, I'm like, okay, I'm scraping that page, I'm creating a page, I'm submitting that, I'm downloading that file, I'm resizing it, and I'm saving it. Like, hopefully that comes across in the scripts you write. And it's not some sort of hodgepodge bash script that you copy and paste and have no idea what it's doing. And if you were to share this with somebody else, that they could customize it however they want. They could pass in their own URL. They could pass in the file path they want to save it to, or the file names, the sizes. And at any point in any of these, like if you wanted to change file path to await path for like a path picker, if you wanted to change, if you wanted to change the file size to like await arg and give them a list of file sizes to pick from, like at any point in this, just like you did in your template before, you can pull out little pieces and turn them into variables that could be user input rather than just an automatic thing.
So I mean, this is some really powerful stuff. Like it's kind of mind blowing to me how much we were able to get done, given my lack of familiarity with the tool, because it is just JavaScript. Like there's pieces that we need to understand. Like there's a little bit of ScriptKit magic here, like the submit thing, and knowing that if you submit, then it gets returned when it gets clicked and things like that. But the cool thing about this is that it's relatively intuitive, and the vast majority of what we're doing is Node that we've seen before. So that is definitely pretty solid. There is a question about using Vim in the editor.
Yeah, it's you can use Vim.
Okay, so how would one change their editor here?
So if you exit out of that, you can kill those processes. That's just the list of running processes.
Just get out of here. Get you out of here. Get you. Oh, that was the open one. Okay. All right, here we go.
So if you go into the Kit tab, and go to type editor, I think it's somewhere in there. Change editor.
Oh, it's already just built in.
Yeah, that should still work. It's not one of those that I test, and it's built it a long time ago.
Okay, so I just changed mine to code in hopes that when I go to, let's go to scrape, and I'm going to hit open, and ba-bam.
Ba-bam.
Yeah, this is great. Like it just works, and I love when things just work. So let's change the editor. I'm going to go back to Kit. Yeah, this is just very slick. I like the way that this feels.
So like a challenge for you would be like, with what we've learned in the past 20, 30 minutes, like scraping images and displayed in a widget. And then when you click on the widget, it changes the user you selected. And like, as a developer with these tools in your hands, like, wait a second, I could do that.
Right.
And wait a second, like I don't need to set up anything. I don't need to configure anything. Let me just copy and paste these two things, mash them together.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a widget of people's faces I can click on. And
yeah, I think that's great. Well, very cool. So let's see, we got like 15 minutes left on the clock. Do we want to call this one? I'm sorry, somebody is calling me like over and over and over again. So give me just 1 second in case something is wrong.
Yeah, let me check the chat. Are you back?
I'm back. I'm so sorry about that, everybody. Thank you so much. That was an important call, so I'm glad I took it. But yeah, everything is great.
Okay.
My partner is at the doctor. That's why I had to take that call.
Okay.
So yeah, we're in good shape here, and I am super pumped. I did turn your mic off. So
it's sorry. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to say stuff.
How do I do this? Okay, so my my car warranty, Social Security benefits. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, you can just DM those to me. I'll take care of it.
All right, y'all. Okay, so we got about 13 minutes here. Do we want to go for one last thing before we wrap?
Sure.
Okay. What should we build?
Let's hit that the LearnWithJason API that you have.
Okay, great. So I have, if we look at here, we have the LearnWithJason.dev, and then we can go to API and we can do something like hit the schedule. And
yeah, let's switch over to your other view.
Oh yeah, what view am I looking at? Let's go to this view. All right, so here's how this works. We've got LearnWithJason.dev/API/schedule, and this is an open thing there. And so now we can hit an API, and this will give us back JSON, so we can do whatever we want with this. What should we try to do?
Show schedule, however you want to name it.
Okay, so let's go with show next LUJ episode.
Perfect.
Okay, and so I'm going to get my response, which will be await
get
fetch
and get. Yeah.
I'm gonna copy paste this one in. Next, drop this one in, and then that like.
And then on the next line, do response.data, so you don't have to like wrap the await statement.
We'll do response.data.
Or destructure, whatever, however you
yeah, all good. So then we've got our, I guess we can call this the schedule. And so
that's an array. Say await arg. List of episodes. Pass in the schedule.map.
Map, and in it we have the episode, and we can do the ep dot.
Let's do some objects here.
Okay.
So yeah, return an object where the name is the title of the episode. So ep dot
Do I have it as .title?
I can.
Which one of you is the, let's see, description, title? Yeah, title.
Yeah, and then do description is ep.description.
Description. Description.
And do value is the ep. So it'll return. That's what it'll return when you hit submit. I think you have an extra paren at the bottom.
I was short one. I had the arg, the map, and then my wrapper. Okay, great. So now that should give us back the episode.
And let's just run it, make sure it's working.
Okay. Wow.
Now you can search all your episodes. It'll search both the title and description.
And that's
so like,
oh,
that
really?
took 10 seconds, right? I mean,
oh, it's got the fuzzy search. That's amazing.
See, so when I say I have an idea for a script, stop talking, start writing. It's like,
yeah.
And I'm not like, again, not to like compare to what that would require in other tools, but.
Well, I mean, it's a good point though, because it's like, you know, and for somebody who really is like an Alfred specialist or a, you know, whatever tool specialist, you know, you're going to have a different experience there. If I know the ins and outs of all of these different tools, I can probably wire some things up pretty fast, but I don't. Yeah. I know the ins and outs of JavaScript. And so this is going to be the fastest tool for me, just given my experience. And I think that's the thing that's important here is like our job isn't necessarily to find the best tool. It's to find the best tool for us for the job we're trying to accomplish. And for a lot of this, you know, for these sorts of things where I just need to look up a quick thing from an API, or I just need to do this, you know, this one quick formatting thing, or I need this snippet, I'm much faster at doing those things in JavaScript than I would be figuring out how another tool has abstracted that stuff. So that I think is really where this gets exciting because, you know, it's dang it, that's cool.
So let's go back to the script since we're short on time. Underneath the main line, write a comment that says shortcut at the top, kind of like the name comment. So these are some of the metadata. Say shortcut, say command 1 or CMD, then space 1, something like that.
Okay.
I think the plus will work. I just do it without.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Okay.
And let's do.
Oh, shut up. Okay. All right.
Okay. So let's go back and now get the response, or from await arg, do const ep equals await arg. And now let's do set selected text so you can paste a markdown link with the title and the URL and stuff. Like whatever format you want to share an episode with somebody.
Okay, so this would be the title, and then this would be like https json.dev, and then it would be app.slug.current, I think is the format that, right?
Okay.
Is that right? app.slug.current, yeah. So then we get one of those, and then that should be the whole thing. So we'll save that, and then I'm gonna run command 1, magic, and then we'll get a link to this, and then I'm just gonna paste this directly into the chat, and oh, that didn't work. What went wrong?
Well, it tried to paste it where the cursor was.
It tried to paste it. I thought it was gonna do the command thing. Okay, let's try that one more time. So, oh wait, we're gonna do command 1. Ah, that's cool. Okay, and I have a typo in my code, so we want to close our markdown so that it's valid.
Yeah.
And then do command 1. And away we go. Valid markdown in what, 3 minutes? 5 minutes? That's pretty excellent.
So yeah, like it's I don't know. I think developers should be able to write the tools that they need for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, it really does feel that way, right? Like this is the sort of thing that we're seeing. And then I see Joel is saying you can just write copy as well.
Yep, that'll put in the clipboard.
So I do one of these, do one of these, and then I can just paste it as many times as I want. Dang it, this feels like magic. Like this is just extremely cool. And the fact that I was able to throw a shortcut in so fast, that we can go in and tweak things the way that we want. And like, it also looks like, I can edit this because now it's not necessarily the next episode. It's like show upcoming or,
Sure,
get MD linked title of, right? Something like that. And now, when I come out here, I can just do LWJ and it describes a little better what it's doing. Like this is just extremely cool stuff. Bam. Dang, that's cool.
That's my tagline for ScriptKit. Bam.
All right, so I think that's about as far as we're going to get today. I can see a lot of really, really cool opportunities here for what else this can do. And there's a bunch of you wanted to show. We mostly stayed in like my style of automation, which is templates and grabbing things from APIs. But that's not all you can do, right? There's a lot more that we can do. So where would somebody go if they want to just learn more? I'll drop the ScriptKit link again.
Yeah, so the community scripts are great for what people are actually building. The docs are relatively new because if you go over to, like, a lot of people don't know a whole bunch of the features that it can do. Like it can schedule scripts to run on cron jobs, it can watch files, and like when a file changes, it can run a script. Like there's basically whatever you want. The docs are still in progress. They're finally in a place where I can just start adding things easily. But
nice.
If you look through there, they're progressing well. Discuss is a great way to hit me up, post something on there, ask me a question. I'd be happy to help you write whatever script, and walk you through anything. If you DM me, I can invite you to our Discord. We're just barely getting Discord set up to chat about that. But
nice.
And
this, so this is the number of downloads of ScriptKit, right? So as everybody goes and installs this, you're going to see this number go up, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's a fun little pat on the back every time I see it, I guess.
Yeah, it's nice. That's very nice. And I've noticed like even just since yesterday, this has gone up by like 25 or 30, which is pretty cool to see. So that I think is as good a place as any to stop. Chat, you know where to find all of us. You can go find John on Twitter, and you can find the live captioning on the homepage of learnwithjason.dev. It's today we've been working with Amanda, White Coat Captioning. Thank you, Amanda. And that's made possible by our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and Backlight, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I greatly appreciate. Make sure you go and check out the schedule. We've got so much good stuff coming up. We are going to look at personalization, personalization is a hard thing to do, and Facundo has a theory that we can make it easier, and without doing a whole bunch of client-side JavaScript. We're going to do accessibility tests with Storybook. We've got Storyblock, and then we've got Storybook. Those are different companies. I'm going to screw that up a bunch of times. We're going to do animation and dev tools for animation with Matt Perry, who built Motion One, visual page building, Rust, Auth Zero Action. So many good things coming up, and more on the way that I haven't had a chance to put on the site yet. So make sure you go and add on Google Calendar, or you can follow on Twitch. Lots and lots of ways, or just get on the old YouTube. I'm pushing. What is it? I'm almost at 30,000 subscribers. We're getting pretty close here. So go and do the old subscribe, ring the bell, all those things that really just make my little ego sing as if it was surrounded with tildes. John, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. This was an absolute blast.
Thanks for having me.
Chat, stay tuned. We're going to go find somebody to raid. We will see you all next time.
Bye-bye now.